When most people look at these lures, the Moto Chug, Moto Minnow, Moto Frog, the first thing impression they're going to get when they hear it and see it is it's going to be a toy or a gimmick. And in all honesty, that's the first thing I thought. I thought it was a real gimmicky kind of thing, didn't really understand it, didn't figure out what it would do. And I was kind of forced into using it, and that is forced into this way. A lot of times you'll run across lily pads or weeds or areas where there's a very small body of water. You know there's fish in there, but the only way you can get to them is with a worm or a fluke or something that you weight and drop down into those weeds or those lily pads and try to pull it through. Or pull something across like a scum frog or something like that. And you know, we all want to fish topwater when topwater's up, and we know those fish are back in there next to the bank and we can't get to them. If there's any open water at all, this is going to work, and it took me about a year to figure that out. So I'm not ashamed to tell you that I thought this thing was a toy or a gimmick as well until I started fishing it, and to my surprise, it really produced. There are two things that are very key and important to remember. One is sound attracts a certain kind of sound. It's a clicking kind of sound, and you get that in things like rattle traps or any kind of crankbait that you hear that's got BBs in it, and you'll hear that sound, that clicking sound. If you're using a Carolina rig on a worm or baits like that, those soft baits, and you're using a Carolina rig, they got little beads on them, and you know as well as I do that when you pick that line up and do this, it's going to click. Well, that click is an attractant. So when you hear a click on any kind of lure, it's going to attract fish. They're going to hear it and be attracted to it. The next thing that attracts a fish or actually triggers the strike is the movement of the lure. So with a crankbait, it's that moving back and forth. With a worm, it's that going up and down and kind of fluttering in the water or bouncing along the bottom, whatever it is, it's that movement. So the movement's going to trigger the strike. The sound is going to attract the fish. Listen to this, and you're going to get the full meaning of what this thing can do. There's the sound. Click after click after click after click, and it will do that for about 7 to 8 seconds. So that means you can throw this topwater bait into a very small opening and have it sit there for 8 seconds, give you movement with the tail, sound with the action of the lure, which you don't have to crank, and then pop it. This happens to be a popper. So you pop it, it'll move about this far, and it'll start that process all over again, which means you can stay in those areas for a long time in the strike zone, and those fish and those weeds and places like that will come to it. They'll come to that sound in curiosity. Then they see the movement of the bait, and that triggers the strike. So you have a far greater chance in those arenas in order to catch a fish than you do with anything else. You can't pull a popper through it, you can't pull a chugger through it, you can't pull a spook through it, you can't pull a buzzbait through it. You're just stuck. So you're either going to fish it with worms or you're going to fish it with this and get all that topwater action that you've always wanted. It works. Now, one of the other great things about this is it's also a great open water bait. I use it all the time. It has become my go-to bait. Now, I also use buzz baits, I use spooks, I don't use poppers and chuggers anymore because frankly I like mine better than anybody else's. So I like the action on them, I like the sound on them, so I really don't use other chuggers and poppers because once you use this, they're just boring to use. And these produce as much or better than anything else because it really does combine that constant sound, that constant clicking with the action. So this definitely looks like a wounded minnow. Of course, this is the nighttime minnow. We fish this in the dark or we fish it at transition times. I'll also use this on gray days. So when it's gray out and stuff like that, I'll use that black stripe. Of course, this is the baby bass. This is kind of the daytime bait. It's good all day long, depending on what time you want to fish top water, but this thing works great. Now, the chugger is another little different kind of thing. It's still sound and motion, but it's different. It's got a skirt on the back of it, and you use this as a chugger. So I very seldom use this one in a situation where I got to keep it steady all the time, but I can if I want to. But if I want to use it a little quicker and chug that thing through there, it's giving me sound all the time that I'm chugging it, and all the time I'm spraying all that water. I still get that, ouch, ooh, oh, get those mustache hooks, those things are sharp. Anyway, I still get that sound along with it, that clicking sound, which is a real attractant to fish. One other thing, what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Oh, I know what it is. In order to get sound and motion with any other lure that's available today, and they usually come subsurface, it's almost all, well, it's completely subsurface, you have to crank it and pull it. It's the only way you can do it, because it's the only way it produces it, to make it go through the water and resist the water and twist and turn, so that gives you the sound. With this, think about this, because this is really important. It gives you sound and motion in a static position. There is no other lure in the world that does that, and that's what makes this so unique and such a great fish catcher. The other thing is, this catches big fish. I don't know why. Doesn't catch as many fish, but it'll catch a bigger quality fish. This thing will just put fish in the boat. I mean, I've caught 12s on this. I've caught 5s, 6s, 2s, 1s, caught everything on. But you catch a lot of fish with the minnow. You'll probably catch a more quality fish, but less fish with the chugger. This, on the other hand, is the true big bass bait. This is the frog, and all you guys out there and women know what a frog is and how popular they are and what a great source of food it is for bass. So this is just a big killer bait. I mean, it'll just sit there and wag its little old tail and feet and make that clicking sound. It's a little bit slower action, so you can either use this as a chugger or you can use it kind of as a popper, depending on just however you see it, and depending on the space that you have. But these three lures are just killer lures: daytime, nighttime, transition time. And that's how you present those: sound and motion. Sound as the attractant, motion as the trigger for a strike, okay? Those are the lures.